Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. This week we are tackling this AI weekly rundown from October 21st to October 28th, 2024.
Oh, buckle up.
Yeah, buckle
A
up.
lot to cover this week.
And, the AI world it never sleeps.
Right.
So much going on. So we're going to try to just give everybody a nice, concise, insightful overview of what were the key things, what are the big developments this week.
Absolutely.
Just the volume of new models, platforms, research, it's a lot. So thankfully, you are here to help us make sense of it all.
Yeah.
So why don't we just jump right into it? And maybe one thing that I saw that I thought was interesting was this whole thing about Google's Gemini 2.0.
Yeah.
Where it sounds like it's not quite meeting the performance expectations that were set by all the hype.
That is interesting. Yeah.
Is that a common thing, do you think? Have you seen that before?
I think so. I mean, we often see this pattern with these large language models that, the initial buzz is really huge.
Right.
But then the actual scaling of them to handle real world complexity is a massive challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a constant race between pushing the boundaries of what's possible and actually being able to deliver a product that lives up to this promise, I guess.
I see.
Yeah.
So then, what does that mean for Google? Does that mean that they're oh, okay, maybe we need to scale back our ambitions for this?
Not necessarily. What the rundown suggests is that they're actually considering a two-pronged approach.
Okay.
Where they will both offer access to developers and general users, but at the same time also work on even more ambitious projects in the background.
Oh.
Like this project Astra that's shrouded in a bit of mystery.
Okay.
But it suggests that they're not giving up on pushing the envelope in terms of model capabilities.
Yeah. So it sounds like they're trying to find that balance between pushing boundaries and delivering a usable product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we see across the AI industry at the moment.
Speaking of pushing boundaries, Anthropic had a massive week, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They really did.
New models, this intriguing computer use capability. Sounds like they're making a real splash.
Yeah, Anthropic definitely had a week for the books. And you're right, this computer use capability is particularly significant.
So, explain that to me. What is the big deal about computer use?
So, computer use, imagine teaching an AI to actually use a computer just like a human would. Clicking, typing, navigating, even using different software applications. So that's what computer use enables. Essentially, an AI can now interact with our digital world in a much more, natural and intuitive way.
It does sound, like something straight out of sci-fi.
It is. It is.
But then, okay, so what are the real-world possibilities then?
Well, think about automation, for example. AI could potentially handle all those tedious tasks that we hate, right? Data entry, scheduling appointments, even managing finances.
Right.
It's like having this super efficient digital assistant, right, that takes care of everything that we really hate to do.
Yeah, all that boring stuff.
Exactly. And that's just, the tip of the iceberg. Because computer use also has huge implications for data analysis, for creative tasks.
Right.
Imagine an AI that can actually browse the internet.
Oh, wow.
Gather information,
Okay.
create presentations, create reports. The possibilities are really, really exciting.
So how does this all play into Anthropic's new models? What was it? There was Claude 3.5, Sonnet, Haiku.
Yeah, well, Anthropic has been busy, as you said. The Sonnet upgrade, which users actually already have access to, really focuses on improving the model's coding and tool use capabilities.
Right.
And then, Claude 3.5 is a significant upgrade to their flagship model.
Right.
Which really demonstrates the rapid pace of development that we see in this space. And then there's Haiku. And Haiku's still a bit under wraps. But given the name, I guess we might speculate that it's aimed at shorter, more concise interactions, maybe even creative writing. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost hard to keep up with all these new models coming out. It's
It is.
every week there's something new.
It's hard to keep up. But it's also incredibly exciting to see how quickly the capabilities of AI are advancing. It's really mind-blowing.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because this week saw a massive surge in open source AI models.
Yes.
Cohere's Aya Expanse, Genmo's Mochi One, Rhyme's AI's Allegro. It's everyone decided to open the floodgates all at once.
Yeah, it's a big week for open source.
So why is this such a big deal? For someone who might not be as familiar with the space, why should they care about this?
Well, open source AI is really a game changer because it means that these powerful models are no longer locked away in the labs of, these big tech companies. So now researchers, developers, even just hobbyists can actually access the code, they can tinker with it, they can build their own applications, and that's incredibly empowering.
So it's about democratizing access to AI.
Exactly. It levels the playing field
Yeah.
and allows for more innovation, more experimentation, and really it's exciting to think about what people will create when they have these powerful tools at their disposal.
It's like giving everyone the keys to the kingdom, basically. So what are the strengths then of these models?
Right.
Who are they kind of aimed at? What makes them unique?
Right. Well, Aya Expanse really focuses on breaking down language barriers.
Hmm.
So it supports a whopping 23 languages
Wow.
and actually outperforms some of the bigger, more established models that we see out there.
Okay.
So that has huge implications for global communication and making AI accessible to a much wider audience.
That's fascinating. It's like the United Nations of AI models.
Uh-huh. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And what about Mochi One? That was another one.
Mochi One, they're doing something really fascinating with video generation.
Okay.
And, video is still this relatively new frontier in AI, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they are open source and they perform competitively with these, closed models, that's a big deal because it can make video creation much more accessible and democratize a medium that has traditionally required specialized skills and expensive equipment.
Yeah.
So this could really be, a big game changer in that space.
And what about Allegro?
Right.
I thought that was interesting because they were talking about like short form videos.
Yes. So Allegro is specifically designed to create those like snappy 6-second videos you see on platforms like TikTok.
Yeah.
So it's a great example of how AI is actually evolving to meet the very specific demands of different media and different platforms.
That's fascinating. It's
Yeah.
almost like it's becoming more and more tailored to very specific, needs and applications.
Sorry.
It's not just about creating one model to rule them all anymore.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We see a real shift towards specialization. Purpose-built AI tools. And it's not just limited to these smaller players either. Because even Stability AI, the company behind the wildly popular Stable Diffusion, they also jumped into the fray with Stable Diffusion 3.5 this week.
Okay.
And what's interesting is that they offer several model variants
Okay.
with different sizes, different capabilities, and they're all customizable and free to use.
Wow.
So it's really a testament to the power and the potential of this open source movement, I think.
Yeah, it really seems like the open source community is driving a lot of the innovation in AI right now.
They really are. It's something to keep a very close eye on in the coming months and years for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, we talked about these incredible models, but like, what about the tools and platforms that are actually like making AI more accessible to developers?
Right.
Because there's a lot of that going on too, right? It's like Hugging Faces HUD-GS, Runways Act 1, even Anthropic is getting in on the action with this their analysis tool. Yeah.
So like, why is this so important,
So I think this is a crucial trend to watch because lowering the barrier to entry for AI development really means that we're going to see a much wider range of applications, more experimentation, and hopefully also more creative solutions to real-world problems. I mean, that Anthropic tool that you mentioned, that's especially intriguing because what they highlight in the rundown is this ability for this tool to actually write and run JavaScript code.
Oh, yeah. That was something that I really kind of caught my eye too. Because it's like, that seems like a potential game changer for automating tasks, analyzing data.
Absolutely. Imagine being able to automate complex data analysis tasks,
Wow.
build custom web applications, even create interactive experiences, all powered by AI. It really opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Okay, so before we get too carried away dreaming about the future, let's talk about another major player that was in the rundown this week, Meta.
Yeah,
They seem to be really, really all in on this whole multimodal AI.
right.
And we saw, Meta Spirit LM, SAM 2.1. Yeah, Meta is definitely betting big on multimodal AI.
So explain that a little bit for our listeners because that might be a new term for some people. What exactly does that mean?
So multimodal AI basically means that an AI can understand and work with different types of input and output. So text, speech, images, you name it.
Right.
It's like teaching an AI to see and hear the world more like, we humans do.
Okay.
And so Metaspirit LM and SAM 2.1 are both really good examples of this multimodal approach.
So what are they trying to achieve with that?
Right. So Metaspirit LM is really a big step towards the seamless integration of spoken and written language. So it's kind of like having an AI that can understand both your voice commands and your written notes. And with SAM 2.1, they're really pushing the boundaries of what's called image and video segmentation, which is basically teaching an AI to identify and understand different objects and regions within an image or video.
Okay. So they're not just building these powerful models, but they're also creating tools and platforms to make them more accessible to developers.
You got it.
It seems like a smart strategy.
And they even released a developer suite for SAM 2.1, which is a clear sign that they're really serious about fostering a whole ecosystem around their models.
Right.
So they want other people to build on top of their work and create new applications.
So we've talked about, the big players, Google, Anthropic, Meta. But what about some of the smaller companies and startups? Because, the rundown mentions some pretty interesting developments from like Hyper AI, Ideogram, and Perplexity.
Yeah.
So what are these, how do these innovations kind of fit into the broader AI landscape? Are these just niche solutions or do they kind of point toward bigger trends?
It's always exciting to see what the smaller players are up to, because innovation isn't just limited to those big tech giants.
Right.
So, for example, Hyper AI is making some real waves with their video model that creates incredibly lifelike motion, even simulates like cinematic camera movements.
Wow.
And then you have Ideogram, who are focused on developing creative tools for generating and manipulating images, which could be a game changer for, designers and artists, giving them new ways to express their ideas and create stunning visuals.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Perplexity, who are all about making information more accessible and useful.
Right.
So they're enhancing their search capabilities with these internal knowledge bases and even AI-powered collaboration hubs. So it's all about really transforming how we find and share information.
Yeah. It's like they're trying to make search more intelligent and more intuitive.
Exactly. So are these just niche solutions, or are they pointing towards broader trends? That's the million-dollar question.
Well, I'm going to guess it's a little bit of both, probably, right?
Yeah, you're probably right. It's always difficult to predict exactly which of these innovations will become, mainstream and which will fade away.
Right.
But what's clear is that these smaller companies are pushing boundaries in their own unique ways. And that's incredibly valuable because they bring fresh perspectives, they explore these new applications, and they keep the big players on their toes.
Yeah. Competition is always good.
Absolutely.
It drives innovation. So amidst all this talk about language models and video generation, there's one company that seemed to be really laser focused on music AI this week.
Right.
And that's Google DeepMind.
Yes.
They've been kind of making the headlines with this music AI sandbox and this music FX DJ.
Yeah, the music side of AI is really heating up.
So explain what those are all about, because it does sound like, on the surface, a lot of fun.
It does sound fun. The music AI sandbox is basically a playground for musicians.
Okay.
It offers a suite of tools for generating and manipulating music. So it's like having this digital toolbox, but it's filled with, AI-powered instruments and effects.
Right. So you can use it to create completely new sounds, experiment with different styles.
Exactly. And Music FX DJ actually takes this even a step further because it's a real-time music generator that anyone can use, even if they have no musical training whatsoever.
Okay.
So it's kind of like having a personal AI DJ in your pocket, so to speak.
So but then on a more serious note, what are the potential implications then of this?
Right.
Is it just a fun experiment, or could this fundamentally change how music is created and experienced?
I think it has the potential to be both. On the one hand, it's definitely a fantastic tool for experimentation and creative exploration. It could really empower musicians to create new sounds, to break down these barriers, to push the boundaries of what's possible with music. But on the other hand, it also raises questions about the role of human creativity in a world where AI can essentially generate music on demand.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. It's like it almost challenges our definition of what it means to be creative.
I think so. And I think that's the conversation that we need to have. It's not about, AI replacing human musicians. It's about AI becoming this new kind of instrument, a new way to explore and express musical ideas.
So it's more about collaboration than competition.
Absolutely. And speaking of accessibility, there was one more item in the rundown that I thought was worth highlighting. Remember that AI and Machine Learning for Dummies PRO app.
Yeah, the one that's like making AI education more accessible.
Yes, exactly. And I think this is a really encouraging development. As AI becomes increasingly integrated into our lives, it's absolutely crucial that people understand how it works, what it can do, and what the potential implications are.
Right.
So it's almost like AI literacy is becoming as important as, traditional literacy.
Yeah, like it's a basic skill you need to have to navigate the world.
Absolutely. We need to equip people with the knowledge and the skills they need to thrive in this AI-powered world. And tools like this app can really play a vital role in democratizing AI knowledge and empowering individuals to participate in the conversation.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Before we move on to part two, can we just like take a moment to kind of like recap what the key takeaways have been from this week in AI?
It's been a really busy week, but yeah, I think some of the standout trends that we've seen are open source AI is exploding, developer tools are becoming increasingly sophisticated, multimodal AI is really gaining momentum, and we're also seeing more attention being paid to, the accessibility of AI knowledge and AI tools.
Yeah, it really feels like the pace of innovation is just accelerating.
It really is. And that brings up a really crucial question. What does all this mean for us as, individuals and as a society?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's like every week there's a new headline about, AI doing something amazing or AI doing something concerning. And it's almost like it's hard to keep up. It's hard to know how to feel about all of it.
Yeah. And I think it's perfectly natural to feel kind of like a mix of excitement and apprehension
Hmm.
because AI definitely has the potential to solve some of our biggest challenges, but it also raises really complex questions that we need to grapple with.
So, like, give us an example. What are some of those big questions that we should be asking?
Well, for starters, as AI becomes more powerful and more autonomous, how do we ensure that it remains aligned with human values?
Right.
How do we prevent bias from, creeping into algorithms that are actually making decisions about our lives?
Mm.
And, how do we even begin to prepare for the potential, economic and social disruptions that AI might bring?
Yeah, those are some big questions. And it's almost like we're just beginning to scratch the surface of the potential impact.
I think we are, yeah. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations now, to really engage with this technology critically and to think deeply about the kind of future that we want to create with it.
It's a lot to consider, but it's also like incredibly exciting. It feels like we're living through a technological revolution, like right before our eyes.
We absolutely are. And just like any revolution, it comes with both risks and opportunities. And it's really up to us to navigate this new landscape thoughtfully and to shape the future of AI in a way that benefits all of humanity.
So, where do we even begin? Because it does feel overwhelming to think about tackling these like, big existential questions about AI.
You're right, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I think the first step is simply to be aware,
Mm.
to pay attention to what's happening in the field, to educate ourselves about the capabilities and the limitations of AI, and to engage in these thoughtful discussions about its implications.
Well, easier said than done, though, right? With the amount of information that's coming at us in all directions.
It is a lot to process, yeah. But that's where, resources like this AI Weekly Rundown come in handy because they provide this really nicely curated snapshot of the most important developments, which could be a great starting point for further exploration.
Right, right. It's almost like a cheat sheet for understanding what's happening in the AI landscape.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
even with a cheat sheet, it's like, it's hard to know which developments are truly significant and which are just, hype.
And that's where critical thinking comes in.
Right.
It's so essential to question assumptions, to look beyond those flashy headlines, and to really consider multiple perspectives.
So we need to be informed, but also discerning.
Yes,
We need to be excited about the potential of AI, but also aware of its limitations.
that's
And we
true.
need to be, proactive in shaping its development rather
Mhm.
than just passively observing it.
Exactly. We're not just spectators in this AI revolution. We are active participants.
Mm.
And the choices that we make today will have a profound impact on the world of tomorrow. I truly believe that.
Now, back to this week's AI news. There was one development that I thought was particularly relevant to this whole, conversation about AI's impact on society, and that was the release of Google DeepMind's Synthid.
Ah, yes. Synthid, the tool for watermarking AI-generated content. What about it stood out to you?
Well, On the surface, it seems like a purely technical solution to a technical problem, how to distinguish between what's real and what's fake.
Right.
But if we kind of like connect it back to the bigger picture,
Right.
it's actually addressing, I think, a fundamental societal challenge, and that's trust.
Hmm. That's a really insightful observation. You're absolutely right. Because as AI gets more and more sophisticated at generating, realistic content, it becomes increasingly difficult to know what to believe. And that erosion of trust can have some really, really serious consequences for our shared understanding of reality.
It's almost like we're entering this post-truth era where the line between fact and fiction is becoming, increasingly blurred.
It is a little bit unsettling, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit unsettling, to be honest.
Yeah. And that's why I think tools like Synthid are so important, because they actually provide a way to verify the authenticity of content, to restore some level of trust in what we see and what we hear online.
So it's not just about preventing the spread of misinformation.
Right.
It's about preserving the integrity of information itself.
Exactly. And that's a challenge that goes way beyond the technical realm, because it requires us to really rethink our relationship with information, to develop critical media literacy skills, and to engage in open and honest dialogue about the role of AI in shaping our understanding of the world.
This is getting pretty deep. Can we take a breather for a second and talk about something a little lighter?
Sure, sure.
What about those new autonomous agents that Microsoft is rolling out? I thought that was kind of interesting.
Oh, you mean the ones that they're integrating into Microsoft Dynamics 365?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are pretty interesting. What about them caught your eye?
Well, I'm curious to see how they actually work in practice.
Mm.
Because, the rundown mentioned that they'll be available for sales, service, finance, and supply chain teams. And I'm like, whoa, imagine having this AI assistant that can, handle your scheduling, answer customer queries, or even, manage your budget.
Yeah, the potential for increased efficiency and productivity is definitely there. It's almost like having a whole team of virtual assistants, working behind the scenes to make your life easier.
It sounds almost too good to be true. But, it also raises questions about the role of human workers in a world where AI can potentially automate so many tasks.
That's a valid concern for sure. And it's definitely a conversation that we need to have as a society. But I think instead of fearing it, maybe we should embrace it as an opportunity to really rethink how we work.
Yeah, I like that perspective. It's like instead of viewing it as a threat, what if we see it as a collaborator, a
Hmm.
tool that can actually free us from these tedious tasks and allow us to really focus on more, creative and fulfilling work.
Exactly. AI could handle the data entry and the number crunching, while humans really bring the creativity, the critical thinking, the emotional intelligence to the table.
It's about finding that right balance,
Oh,
right,
yes.
between the human and the artificial intelligence,
Mhm.
and leveraging the strengths of each to create a more efficient but also, more equitable workplace.
I couldn't agree more. It's about creating a future where AI empowers us rather than replaces us.
So what does that future look like? What are the concrete steps that we can take to ensure that AI is used for good?
Well, for one thing, we need to prioritize education and training.
Mm.
We need to equip people with the skills and the knowledge they need to thrive in this AI-powered world.
So everyone understands it.
Exactly. And if everyone understands it, then we can collectively make informed decisions about its development and its deployment. We also need to invest in research and development that really focuses on the ethical implications of AI.
Right.
We need to develop robust frameworks for responsible AI development and deployment.
Mm.
And we need to ensure that these frameworks are actually translated into, concrete policies and regulations.
It's a multifaceted approach for sure.
It is. We need to address the technical challenges, the ethical concerns, and the social implications all at the same time.
So what's the takeaway then for our listeners? What can they do to make a difference in this AI revolution that we're witnessing?
I think the most important thing is to stay informed, to ask questions, and to engage in the conversation.
Mm.
Don't be afraid to challenge assumptions, to voice your concerns, and to really demand accountability from, those who are developing and deploying this technology.
Yeah, it's about being an active citizen in the digital age, right?
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI, and that our collective choices will really determine whether it becomes a force for good or a source of harm.
Okay. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part, from the big picture implications of AI to the specific developments that are shaping the landscape.
It's been quite a journey so far.
Yeah, it really has. But there's still so much more to explore. So, in part two, we'll continue our exploration of the AI Weekly Rundown. We'll dive into some of the more niche innovations, and we'll continue our discussion about, these broader trends that we're seeing emerge. Stay tuned.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We're going to pick up right where we left off with our exploration of the AI Weekly Rundown.
Yeah, we covered some pretty big ground in part one. A lot of exciting developments to unpack.
Definitely. But, there's always more to discover in the world of AI. It's like this constantly evolving landscape.
It really is. And it's not just about the big players and the headline-grabbing breakthroughs.
Right. There's a whole ecosystem of smaller companies, startups, and researchers who are pushing boundaries in their own unique ways.
Exactly. So in this part, we're going to dive into some of the more niche innovations that caught our attention in the rundown.
Sounds good. Where should we start?
Well, remember Asana, that project management platform that, we probably both spend way too much time in.
Oh, absolutely. Who hasn't spent hours in Asana trying to wrangle a project and keep everyone on track?
Well, they just announced something called AI Studio, which is basically a no-code platform for designing and deploying AI agents directly into your Asana workflows.
No code. So you're telling me I don't need to be a codant whiz to create AI that can help me manage my projects?
That's the idea. They're really trying to make AI more accessible and user-friendly. It's not just for, the tech wizards anymore.
So instead of needing to know how to code, you can just use this visual builder to drag and drop different AI components and create something that automates tasks within your Asana projects.
Exactly. It's all about making AI more intuitive and integrated into the tools we already use.
Okay, switching gears a bit. The rundown also mentioned Playground AI's Playground V3.
Ah, yes. This one is interesting because it's a new image generation model that's specifically designed for graphic design.
So it's like instead of just asking an AI to generate any old image, you could use this to create a logo, a marketing graphic, or even a website layout.
Absolutely. And I think this focus on specialization is really important because it suggests that AI tools are becoming more tailored to specific industries and creative fields.
It's like the difference between, a general contractor and a master craftsman. Sometimes you need someone with very specific expertise.
I love that analogy. Now, here's one that really caught my eye. Microsoft also released something called OmniParser.
Omni what?
OmniParser. And it's basically a tool for interpreting user interface screenshots.
Okay. That sounds a bit technical. What's the practical application of something like that?
So think about all the digital interfaces we interact with every day, right? Websites, apps, those sometimes frustrating touchscreen kiosks. OmniParser can actually take a screenshot of that interface and turn it into structured data that an AI can understand.
So potentially you could use this to create AI that can actually navigate those interfaces for us.
That's exactly the kind of application this technology could enable.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. So instead of having to click through a bunch of menus or fill out a complicated form, you could just take a screenshot and let the AI do the work.
Exactly. It's all about bridging the gap between, the visual world and the language of computers.
Okay, last but not least, the rundown mentioned that Replicate launched a playground for experimenting with different image models, it sounds like. Kind of like a sandbox for AI artists.
That's a great way to describe it. It lets you test out different models, play around with various prompts and settings, and then you can compare the results side by side.
So even if you're not a coding expert, you can still explore the creative potential of these, really powerful image generation models.
Exactly. It's all about making AI more accessible and empowering more people to become creators regardless of their technical background.
I love that. So as we kind of wrap up this part of our AI exploration, I'm just curious, what are some of the key takeaways for you this week? What's standing out in terms of broader trends?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is this. AI is not some distant, futuristic concept anymore. It's woven into the fabric of our daily lives, whether we realize it or not. And as we've seen this week, it's evolving at an absolutely incredible pace.
It can feel a bit overwhelming at times, but it's also incredibly exciting to be witnessing this technological revolution unfold, right before our eyes.
It really is. But I think with that excitement comes a responsibility to engage with these developments thoughtfully and critically.
That's a good point. What are some of the most important questions we should be asking ourselves then as we navigate this AI revolution?
For me, it always comes back to the human element. How can we ensure that AI enhances our lives rather than diminishes them? How can we foster a sense of, shared understanding and responsibility in a world that's increasingly mediated by algorithms?
Mm-hmm.
And how can we harness the power of AI to create a more just, equitable, and sustainable future for everyone?
And we are back for the final part of our deep dive. We are going to wrap things up with the AI Weekly Rundown.
Yeah, we've explored some really fascinating trends so far. A lot to process.
Definitely. A lot to process.
Yeah.
So in this last part, we're going to kind of like zero in on a few more, I guess you could say, niche innovations that really caught our eye.
Yeah, those little details that give you a glimpse into like where things might be headed.
Okay, perfect. So let's jump right in. One thing I saw that I thought was really interesting was this whole thing with Microsoft.
Yeah.
And they are rolling out these autonomous agents that they're going to, start integrating into like their Microsoft Dynamics 365
Oh
platform.
yeah, those are interesting. What about them caught your eye?
Well, I mean, on the surface, they're talking about how they want to make them available for, sales and service teams, finance, supply chain, like pretty much every aspect of a business.
Right.
And I just think it's fascinating to think about like how that's going to actually work in practice. Like imagine having this AI assistant that can like handle your scheduling, answer customer queries, or even like manage your budget.
I mean, the potential for increased efficiency and productivity is definitely there. It's almost like having, a whole team of virtual assistants working behind the scenes to make your life easier.
It does. Yeah, it sounds almost too good to be true. But then of course, it raises those questions about, okay, well, what is the role then of human workers in a world where AI can potentially automate so many tasks?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? And I don't think there's an easy answer to that, but I do think that, instead of fearing it, maybe we should see it as an opportunity.
Okay.
An opportunity to really rethink how we work and how we organize our businesses.
Yeah, I like that perspective. It's like instead of viewing AI as this threat, like what if we see it as a collaborator,
Mm,
a tool that can actually free us from those tedious tasks and allow us to really focus on, the more creative, the more strategic, the more, human aspects of work.
absolutely. AI could handle, the data entry, the number crunching,
Right.
while humans really bring the creativity, the critical thinking, and the emotional intelligence to the table.
Right, right. So it's really about, I guess, like finding that balance
That is.
between the human and the artificial intelligence and really leveraging, the strengths of each to create, like you said, a more efficient workplace, but also a more equitable workplace.
Exactly. It's about creating a future where AI empowers us rather than replaces us.
And I think that's a really hopeful message. I mean, there's so much potential there. Now, speaking of potential, the rundown also highlighted a company called Character.ai. Have you heard of them?
Oh, yeah. They've been getting a lot of attention lately.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones behind those, really impressive AI chatbots that can mimic the personalities of, like, famous people and fictional characters.
Yeah. Like it's kind of crazy how realistic they are. Like you can literally have a conversation with like a simulated Albert Einstein or like a character from your favorite movie.
It's mind-blowing how far this technology has come.
Mm.
And what's interesting is that, Character.ai just announced that they've raised $150 million in funding.
Wow. That's a significant investment.
It really is. And it shows that there's serious interest, not just in the technology itself, but also in its potential commercial applications.
So like what kind of commercial applications are we talking about here? Because I mean, on the surface, it seems like, fun entertainment, you can chat with your favorite celebrity or whatever. But like, is there something more to it than that?
I think there definitely could be.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine using these AI characters
Mm-hmm.
for things like, customer service or
Mm-hmm.
education. You could have a virtual tutor who can adapt to your learning style, or a customer service rep who's available 24/7 and never loses their patience.
Right, right. It's like it takes the concept of the chat bot to a whole other level.
Exactly. And I think we're just scratching the surface of what's possible with this kind of technology.
So we've talked about a lot of really cool and exciting developments this week, but like, as we kind of like zoom out and look at the bigger picture, are there any kind of overarching themes or trends that you're seeing emerge in the AI landscape?
Yeah, I think one of the most significant trends is this increasing focus on making AI more accessible and user-friendly. We're seeing more no-code platforms, more intuitive interfaces, and more tools that are designed for people who aren't, hardcore programmers.
So it's not just about, the technology itself anymore. It's about how we interact with it and how we can make it work for us.
Exactly. And I think that's a really positive development because as AI becomes more integrated into our lives, it's essential that everyone has the opportunity to understand it, to use it, and to shape its future.
Absolutely. And I think that's a perfect note to wrap things up on.
Couldn't agree more.
So, as we conclude this deep dive into the AI Weekly Rundown, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on this journey. It's always a pleasure to have you here to break down these complex topics and share your insights.
The pleasure is all mine. It's always exciting to see what's happening in this ever-evolving world of AI.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We hope you found this deep dive informative and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Remember, the world of AI is constantly changing, so stay curious, keep exploring, and we'll catch you on the next episode of The Deep Dive.
Until next time.